Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of Spiral from the Book of Saw. This movie is directed by Darren Lynn Bousman, who previously directed Saws 2, 3, and 4. This movie stars Chris Rock, Mike Mignola, and Samuel L. Jackson. Now, the plot of this movie is Chris Rock plays a detective named Ezekiel Banks, who gets a new partner, played by Mike Mignola, and these Jigsaw and John Kramer type murders start popping up all around town. And so it's up to Ezekiel and his new partner to uncover the truth. Now, when I first heard about this movie, I was intrigued because the posters and the artwork that I had seen was of a lone detective on this street, or a detective looking at a graphic. I was like, okay, this could be a nice, detective story that's dark and gritty. But then I heard it was involving Saw, and I got really excited. I wanted this to be a movie like Along Came a Spider, or True Detective, or even Seven with Saw elements. I thought that at this point in time, after Saw had been around for 16 years, that Spiral would have become some sort of cult. Something like Halloween 5, where it wasn't jigsaw traps anymore, but more like followers that either dress up like John Kramer or something crazy like that. Dark, yet serious. And then I found out Darren Lynn Bousman was attached to it, and I was also intrigued. So, having seen the movie, I can say that it's more of a detective movie with Saw elements, and not in a good way. Let's start with Chris Rock. He's the reason we all wanted to see this movie, because whether we took Chris Rock as a comedian before this film, or an actor, we wanted to see how someone like Chris Rock, his personality, his persona, would fit into a Saw movie. So, Chris Rock is this detective, and he kind of comes off as a guy that's really just there to do his job, someone that's been around for a while. He starts off kind of one way, as like one character, but then over the course of the movie just shifts into another character caught in this jigsaw type game. He starts off as this wisecracking detective who's seen a lot of things and been through a lot, because he has a funny monologue of Forrest Gump or being divorced and being a cop. And so those aspects were neat, because you thought you were going to get a movie unlike anything you'd seen before in the Saw franchise. But we were wrong. And he also deals with a corrupt police force. Everyone in the police force calls him a rat and calls him this thing and that thing, and they don't like him for reasons that the movie shows you over time. But again, that's something I have an issue with, because all these events that people are blaming him for happened 8 years ago, and these people really know how to hold a grudge. It's like the movie needed another obstacle in this detective's way, or needed another problem for him to overcome so the movie can play out a certain way. But I'll get to that a little later. Samuel L. Jackson's in the movie. He's not in the movie for very long. He plays Ezekiel's father, who used to be the police captain on the force. His presence is always welcome. His role was memorable, but like I said, it wasn't throughout the whole movie like I thought it was going to be. The supporting cast of Mike Mignola as the partner, he was fine. It's nice to see that actor in more roles nowadays. The female police captain, I forget her name, she was good in the role, but everyone else of the supporting cast, whether it's a police officer or not, they're very one note. They're just cop A or cop B or cop C that doesn't like Chris Rock's character. And of course, you can't have a Saw movie without the trap, so let's discuss them. Now, I will say, they took a different approach to this movie, because after all, after 8 films, you can only do things a certain way before it becomes old and out of style. So this movie tried to do something new. The movie has your traps, where someone has to become physically maimed to escape it, and they're bad people that are put into these traps. But Billy the Puppet, John Kramer's voice, and even the way these people are put into the traps and everything is different. And you can tell right away. As soon as that first video pops up and it's someone that's not Billy the Puppet and someone's voice that's not John Kramer's, you're like, okay, this is going to be different and new and exciting. But then it's all flash and no substance, and it doesn't become as exciting. You miss John Kramer as you're watching this movie. When they mention Jigsaw, when they mention John, when they show police articles, when they show things from other films you recognize, you want that back. Because the director and Chris Rock, they tried to go in such a different direction that they really didn't change a whole lot. Because like I said earlier, it just dives back into the formula that we've seen many times before. Even some of the actions and choices by these characters are just dumb. It's like you're cops who have been on the job for this long, and just because you don't like someone, you choose to do this or choose to do that. It's like, come on, people. Now, I will say, this movie took a departure from a lot of the other films, because a lot of the other films have a main character that's put through a game, has been put through different traps, or is someone who has to decide the fate of other people in said traps. This is different. I thought this was going to be about a detective, kind of like maybe in the first movie with Detective Tapp, Danny Glover's character. I thought this was going to be about a cop who had seen all that stuff before, who kind of knew how Jigsaw worked. Now there was a young copycat on the horizon that he was going to be able to put the pieces together and then pay for it in the end. And we didn't get that. Now going into this, I would have been totally okay with the reveal of the killer or killers being part of a Jigsaw cult, or a group of John Kramer sympathizers that punish the evil or wrongdoers. People that wear, Billy the Puppet masks or pig masks or something like that. That would have been really cool. And then the reveal for this movie comes, and you're like, oh, that's it? Well, they revealed the killer or killers, so that tells you right there that this isn't going to be a franchise, which is disappointing. And the characters' motivations for doing things, it just falls apart. And there's logic holes, like how did they build all the traps? Why did they wait this long to do things? And it's frustrating. Even the end, when I go into a Saw movie, I want three things. I want John Kramer's voice or presence, I want the awesome Saw theme song, and I want a twist that's going to leave you speechless as you walk out of the theater. I mean, on the bright side, we got one of those things, but at the end of this movie, you're just like, what? Just when you thought Saw 7 and Jigsaw couldn't get any worse as far as the storyline goes, this one, it starts out new, refreshing, and exciting, and then it slowly and quickly dives back into things we've seen before. Now, I'm a huge Saw fan. See? I love this stuff. But this new movie is executive produced by almost everyone except for the Spear brothers that did the other films, which is mind-boggling because this could have been so good. It could have been another franchise. It could have rejuvenated the Saw movies for the next generation, but it doesn't, and it kind of takes the easy way out. And so because of that, I'm going to give Spiral from the Book of Saw a C. It had mentions of John Kramer. It tied into the Saw films. But in the end, this just wasn't a game I wanted to play. This movie was a lot like the movie Joker. A lot of people compare that to Taxi Driver because it was very similar to Taxi Driver, but they wanted to tack on the Batman and Joker lore to make it something new. And that's what this movie is. It's a detective movie about cops and dirty cops and how the past can come back to haunt you. They just slapped on John Kramer and Jigsaw stuff to make it a whole new thing. So, this was disappointing, guys. I'm sorry to say. Until next time, say